UX! What's up?
Welcome! What the Welcome to the new episode of Good Morning UX.
Yeah,
Bonito and I
yeah.
here with you, and we are very happy today. And
I'm always happy.
not just about that, but we are happy because we have a great guest with us today, right?
Yes, one more. One
One
more.
more, yeah, one more. Jim Kalbach, right? Kalbach.
Callback. Callback,
Kalbach. Yeah,
I
sorry,
think.
Jim. Sorry. Yeah. So, and what your what is your expectations about this chat, Rafael
Well, yeah,
Buriti?
yeah. Well. I think our audience knows that we love these conversations in English because the most part of the guests are a kind of reference for us. And today is not different. The Jim is a huge reference because his book, it's a
Map
very famous book.
mapping
The
experience and
Yes,
jobs to be
actually, yeah,
done. Yeah.
this book is one of the not so common books for UX design in translated for to Portuguese, and because that I think this book is very famous about that because that is one of the cause of that. And my expectations high because I love this subject. I love to talk about experience. I love to talk about user journey. It's one of the most important tools for me to do this. And I love,
We already spoke about that in Portuguese sometimes, right? Jobs to be done. We
yes,
recorded a video,
yeah,
right, in Portuguese.
yes, in our in our in our or origins show, I suppose it's a
Your main show
main show.
could be
Yeah, the
main show.
first show, the
Yeah.
Bom Dia UX, we talked about that sometimes. And I love to talk about this subject because I think it's the most important thing for UX designers. And of course, we have some controversial thoughts
Oh, yeah,
about this
I agree
thing.
because
Yeah.
for me, sometimes we make some mistakes applying job
Yeah.
to be done or
In many
thinking about
ways.
it,
In
right?
many ways.
Yes,
Yeah. In
yes.
many
So
ways.
I think we have opportunity to ask the author of
Yeah.
jobs to
Yeah.
be done about that, right?
And understand his point of view is very
Yeah,
important.
yes. So
And maybe give our audience an opportunity to discuss with us and him in our comments.
good idea. Good idea.
Yeah.
So do you prepare your script?
Yeah, always. I don't know always, but
Not,
yeah.
not always. Not always. Come on, tell us the truth.
No,
I
yeah.
know that.
Actually, I have a script here, but I don't know
We
if I
have.
will follow that.
Yeah, but always we we go through another.
Yeah,
Very good. So we are here, and it's a pleasure to have you here with us, Jim. It's amazing. You are a reference for us. We have your books here, Britti.
All
You have one, right, Britti? Is there?
right.
You can
Yeah, there
see.
it is. I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And just to start, if someone here doesn't know you here in Brazil, I'd like to ask you to introduce yourself in a quickly introduction, talking about your experience, books, and so on.
Sure.
So, can you?
Yeah, sure. Hey, I'm Jim Kalbach. I live in the New York City area, so I'm American on the East Coast. My background is in design and innovation. Over 20 years ago, I worked for design teams as well as some innovation capabilities, both internally, both inside of large organizations and externally as a consultant. But for the past 9 years, I've worked for Mural, an online digital whiteboard, and there I'm the chief evangelist. And through the past two decades, I've written a couple of books that actually reflect some of my interests career-wise. I wrote a book called Designing Web Navigation when I was into website design, but Mapping Experiences is a popular book that I wrote that I wrote the second edition of in 2020. And in that same year, I also launched a book called The Jobs to Be Done Playbook. So those two are kind of top of mind for me right now.
Great, great. Wow, a great experience. But I have a question. Chief evangelist, what does this mean? Please,
Yeah,
can you explain us?
it's a good question. It's a role that actually exists, and it's more common than you might think. I know of a couple of dozen of other chief evangelists. We actually got together and we have a meeting once a month or so. But it's a role that was kind of pioneered in Silicon Valley a couple of decades ago, where companies like Apple and other large tech companies realized that they needed someone who themselves is a subject matter expert to go out and talk to other subject matter experts for adoption, basically. I don't consider it necessarily a marketing role. It's not about trying to get more people at the top of the funnel. It's really about engaging with people in a unique and authentic way, right? So another way to think about the chief evangelist is I embody the principles and the ethos of the company, and I think that that it's a different type of promotion. I do promotion, right? But it's a different type of promotion because I'm very passionate about it, and I can speak to people on an eye-to-eye level as peers, and that's really kind of what I do. I spend a lot of my time working with our customers, actually, with our existing customers, and I'll go around and I'll give one-on-one even. So again, it's not necessarily about broadcasting a message to the most amount of people. It's really about engaging with the right people on a really deep level.
Something related with trying to change in the mindset, something like that. Oh.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and the need for a chief evangelist really comes from the fact that a lot of fields themselves are growing, and I'm in a field that itself is growing, and what we've realized, the group that I just mentioned, is that we're there to talk about we evangelize the problem that the market has, right? We're trying to expand the market itself, right? So it goes beyond just immediate sales, or like I said, like funnel or conversion. It's not about that. It's really about advancing the field and really speaking to the problem that a solution solves first and foremost before talking about the product. So we like to say problems over products, and that's really what I evangelize. I evangelize the customers and the customer problem.
Wow, this is totally connected with mapping experience, right?
Yeah, I think so. I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I want to ask Burichi. I will change our approach here. Burichi,
Yeah.
why did we invite Jim to chat in your program today?
I am Burichi, okay?
He's Rafael Burichi.
I think it's a little difficult to say my surname, okay? But first of all, I would like to understand more about this chief evangelist, because it's not a work for the workers of your company, but it's a kind of you do more outside of the company, outside of the building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in both directions, right? I am very external facing, and like I said, I work a lot with our existing customers. And in a B2B situation, which we are, on the customer side, there's very often it's a small group of people who actually make the account go forward, and I try to foster authentic relationships with them. But because I'm talking to a lot of customers all the time, I mean, most of my day is, emailing or talking with customers. I think there's a responsibility for me to bring some of that back internally, right? So when we talk about unmet needs in the marketplace, for instance, I have an opinion that's informed by my connection with the market, or even things around product, product feedback and things like that. Often at a strategic level, sometimes as well too. Yeah. So there are a lot of people in my company who want to be advocates for what we do. And I also work with them and I mentor them, or if they're writing a blog article or they're speaking on stage, they can come to me for advice as well too. So yeah, I spend most of my time external, but I think it's also part of my responsibility to bring that back inside.
Okay. You may you make this environment works. You
Yeah.
make the environment between customers and the company and their needs. You are really the voice of the user in this case.
That's right. That's right. And that's what I said. I evangelize the customer and their problems. And I work directly with customers to help them solve their problems or reach their own goals as well too. But yeah, again, it's about understanding that at a level where I can relate that back to our business.
Oh, great, great. And back into the motivation that we invited you. In my opinion, as a designer, I think, especially when we talk about user experience, this capability to map experience for me is the most important thing when you think about UX design things. And of course, as you said, you wrote one of the most important books. Is a kind of big guide for everyone. I always say to my students or team to follow this book, because this book has a lot of examples and methodologies to follow.
Yeah.
But that's at the same time you wrote the Jobs to be Done playbook.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of discussions in the market about these two subjects, about the mapping experience and the power of jobs to be done.
Yeah.
And I would love to hear from you the difference and, of course, the common things
intersection.
between these two subjects.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'll start with the common things, and then I'll get to the differences. I think the biggest single most commonality between mapping experiences and jobs to be done, as represented in my book, right, is that they're both human centered, right? And that's, throughout my career, it's always been a user centered or a customer centered. I like to say human centered these days, actually, because it doesn't matter if they're a user or customer. They're an individual and they're a human being, right, first and foremost. So I think that's kind of the biggest commonality. Is I think the mindset there is similar, which is business growth, right? Because businesses want to grow, right? And they can grow by acquiring new technology or having more sales or more marketing, right? And those things aren't bad, but I think, my belief is that for long-term sustainable growth and for innovation as well too, you got to look at the people that you serve, the audiences and the markets and what their needs are, and then come up with your technology, right? So start with the experience and work back towards the technology, not the other way around. And both of the approaches, mapping experiences and jobs to be done, both have that mindset that they bring with them. The difference is, though, I think one of perspective. If I just think about, mapping experiences as I describe in the book there, most of that is looking at the experience through the lens of how the individual interacts with an organization, right? And I even talk about that in the first chapter. I refer to valued-centered design, right? That and the individual, the customer, the user, they're looking to get some value from the organization, and the organization wants some value as well too, right? They, profit and market share and brand awareness or whatever that is. So there's an exchange of value, but that value exchange comes with a very specific perspective, and that is the organization sees the individual as a user or a customer of their solution, right? So it's really about bringing their offering to the market in a way that's going to maximize adoption, right? Jobs to be done, it takes a different perspective, because what Jobs to be done says is that for long-term innovation, it doesn't matter what product you have or what your brand is, your price point, your go-to-market, all of that stuff doesn't matter. I want to look at what people do independent of solutions and technology, right? So that's probably the biggest difference. And then therefore, the techniques and the artifacts and the things that I describe in both of those books are going to have it's on the surface, it might seem like a very slight difference or a very nuanced difference, but it's a very, very important difference that I was just talking about, is that the perspective is different. As a result, they're used for different things inside of the organization. I really see jobs to be done as more of a long-term innovation technique. Where can I find opportunities that my competitors haven't found yet, for instance? Whereas mapping experiences is about, it doesn't have to be short-term, but more incremental, or how do I make my existing offering better, right? There's overlap there, though, so it's not that clear cut. In fact, I talk about jobs to be done in my mapping experience book, right? And vice versa, even, so there is overlap. But if you ask me about the differences, it's one of perspective.
Wow. And for you, the jobs to be done works better for innovation. This is the question here.
I think so. It's really about looking about like what else, or said another way, it's what am I missing, right? Because I think any organization is kind of blinded by their own offering and their own brand, and you're hyper focused on that, right? You just want to sell more, do more, get more users, whatever your goal is of your product. But what jobs to be done does is it shifts your perspective, and you say, let's leave that over there. And in fact, the technique requires you to do that. We're going to leave that over there. We're going to look for opportunities that you might have missed, and hopefully your competitors missed as well too. Whether that turns into innovation or an incremental improvement, there's debate there. But yeah, it is. Jobs to be done brings a little bit more long-term thinking with it, right? It's not about current optimization. It's about what else or what's next, right?
Yeah, great. Optimizations for me is the kitchen in this case, because
key word here.
Yeah, because I love to. For me, it's impossible if you are a UX designer, you doesn't have a user flow or user mapping or whatever you use in the tasks of the product, because it is the tool to see what needs to be improved to grow but jobs to be done is more to okay, I have a product, I have a solution, but I would love to know more about what the users or the customers do in your life.
That's right.
Okay, great.
I think as a result, I'm going to go back to a difference here too, is that and I think this is important, and it's actually why I was attracted to jobs to be done, is that jobs to be done, first of all, historically is not a design field. Like it was invented by business thinkers to understand their markets differently, but also the way that it comes out inside of teams, like the results of jobs to be done work inside of teams, really appeals to everybody in the organization. I mean, I talk to sales teams, I've been talking to marketing teams, looking at customer success. So I think jobs to be done has a more kind of foundational or fundamental impact on organizations, and it's not just a UX design technique. Mapping experiences is a little bit broader. So that's not 100% fair, but jobs to be done really is something that can be across the organization, and just about anybody in the organization can benefit from it.
Yeah, I agree, because here in Brazil, it's so totally clear to see product areas using and assume jobs to be done with the main tool of them. And user experience design, oh no, not so. Let's keep jobs to be done with a product area because it's a kind of framework for them, something like that. We can see that kind of different in some places here. It's clear.
Yeah, I mean, there are people that use jobs to be done for business strategy, like corporate level business strategy. What company should we acquire? Question through the lens of jobs to be done, and people do that.
Yeah. But do you think this is a tool more for this specific use, or of course not, but I need to ask that. But it's specific for
Let's enjoy.
strategies, innovators, or this moment when the business area decide to plan something, or it can be used in day by day for every person.
Yeah. So, the framework historically was developed by leading business thinkers in the field at a very high level, strategic level. And a lot of consultancies out there right now also do that type of strategic work. But myself, having been a UX designer, I'm not a UX designer anymore. The first time I was reading about jobs to be done, I said, wow, I can use this in my day-to-day work, as you say,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So if you look at my book compared to some of the other ones out there, I hope that's a difference that you'll see, is that what I tried to do is say, yes, jobs to be done has the potential to be rigorous and scientific and quantitative, and it can inform business strategy, right? But there are also practices. I call these plays in my book. That's why it's a playbook, right? Because there's individual techniques. Then I can just use that one technique, right? And I think it even goes down from there, that it really is, you could be in a team meeting or a sprint planning and talking about requirements. I'm just making that up right now. And stop and say, yeah, but what's the customer job to be done, right? Just throw that question in the room. In my mind, you would be using jobs to be done thinking, right? And for me, so it's not, for me, it's not one or the other. It's actually all of those
Yeah.
things. I think my earlier comment was that jobs to be done can be almost scientific, and it can be a method that people use at a high business level, of corporate strategy. But yeah, a UX designer or somebody in marketing, they can also just use a part of it to help them think through a day-to-day problem.
Yeah. I think sometimes we make the decisions in product experience more difficult than they are. And sometimes jobs to be done make this easier. It's okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you had 5, 6
A
personas. Oh my
shortcut
God,
to save.
forget that, and just look to the jobs to be done of these customers, and
Right.
you
Yep.
decide that.
I have to agree with you. And I love the way you phrase it. We make our decisions harder than they need to be. I
Yeah.
think that's right. The way that I see it is that sometimes people make jobs to be done more complicated, right? Because I
Yeah.
teach a lot of jobs to be done. But I love the way that you frame it, because I also see that as well too. And that's the here's the thing. Here's the thing about jobs to be done. Jobs to be done brings focus with it, right?
Mhm.
And it does so by isolating variables. And I know when I was a UX designer, right, I used to work in B2B context, for instance. And you'd be like, oh, well, there's this stakeholder and that stakeholder, and we want to see how all of them work together and interact. And we want to know how they feel and how they use mobile devices. And you just tried to take everything and try to make sense out of it, right? Oh, we need 8 personas for this and 5 journey maps for
Yeah.
this. The other thing, what Jobs to be done does is says, nope, pick a job performer and tell me what the
Yeah.
core job is, and let's simplify that. So for me, what it is you have all of these variables that, and I'm not against the variables, by the way, because I love like gray. I'm a UX designer. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But when you bring that to a team, or when you bring that to the decision-making table, sometimes there's too many variables and there's too much. And what Jobs to be done does is says, you know what's underneath all of that? It's a big pile of variables, right? Emotions and people and different workflows, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what's under that? There's a job to be done under that. Start
Yeah.
there. So it doesn't say ignore all those other things. What has to be done for me is a starting point. It says start there, understand the job, and make sure your solution gets that done. Then you can start thinking about all of these other variables.
Yeah. In a summary, it is the real necessity of our user.
I think
This
so.
job.
I
This
think
is
so.
yeah.
Well,
But
well,
of course, I'm
yeah.
sorry. Can you?
Well, I mean, that the jobs to be done theory is really one of causality. What causes people to adopt a solution, right?
Yeah.
And the jobs to be done theory says it's their job that they're trying to get done, right?
Yes.
Now you could argue with that theory at a fundamental level, but I think there's a lot of evidence out there that that there's some truth key causal driver, the thing that's going to cause people to do something different, is their job to be done, right? So it's really about getting to the core thing that makes a causal effect on something else, right? And that's really what the under the middle of this big pile that I was talking about is causality is under there.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, because I think one word or one thing that you said was the industry works for B2B companies. There is this specific way to work and to take decisions. And I think jobs to be done is really perfect for that, because usually in B2B, we need to be more pragmatic and straight to the point. And jobs to be done can make this make us capable to take this kind of decisions. I don't know. But of course, we as UX designers, we have this challenge to not avoid so much the human the human approach.
I agree. And, and like I said, all of those variables are great. I mean, I used to do like ethnographic studies, right? We just go out and talk to people and watch them, and you have piles of data. I loved it. That's great. So I like to think of jobs to be done more as a step in a larger process, right? Is that do that first. Understand the job performer and the target job first before you bring in all these other variables, because you'll have a lot more clarity and focus. And that's what jobs to be done does. It asks you to be more focused, but then it also gives you a lot of focus back.
Yeah, it's great. Great. Probably after the jobs to be done defined, we can go deeper in user mapping or user flows or other things, because this is the moment for the solution, not the decision.
Exactly. Right.
Great.
And it'll help you navigate all that all the gray. I call it the gray zone, right? Because it's not black and white. Nothing in UX is black and white, right? It always depends, right? That's the famous answer in UX. It depends, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. I can wrap my arms around that. I've been doing that for most of my career, right? That's not a problem. But what jobs to be done does is it actually helps you to navigate that, because it gives you something at the core that you can always orient all those variables around.
Great. And what is your opinion? It's a little controversial, okay?
Come on.
What's your opinion?
Control yourself, Buritinho.
No. I think it's important. It's important because I am this guy who loves books and the theoretical things, okay, Jim? But we are facing this moment when we decide to discuss everything, and everything is a little not so right, and we can do other thinking, but I would like to talk about persona, because when we talk for jobs to be done, usually persona, I don't know if it has a fit. I would love to hear your opinion about persona in this context about the jobs to be done, because I think when we talk user mapping makes sense, but jobs to be done a little different.
Yeah, it is a little different. I included personas in my book, by the way. It's actually a play in my playbook. So right off the bat, I'm not against personas.
Great.
I think what jobs to be done does, and I just hinted at it in my last response there, I think it flips the script, as we say in English. In a lot of UX design, you first identify the people that you want to serve, and then you create a persona, right? And then you try to understand that persona, right? So the person is the unit of analysis, right? What jobs to be done does is it says the job is the unit of analysis, right? But they're not mutually exclusive, though, because the way that I see it is that once I understand the job and how people get that done and what their unmet needs are, I can then think about personas, right? So it's rather than starting with the persona and then looking at what they do, it's let's look at what they do and then come up with personas, if that makes sense. So it kind of flips it around, but I think personas are still very useful. Actually, if you do them right, and if there's a need for them, I think personas are one of those type of deliverables and artifacts that people just do because they feel obligated to. But is like, well, what's the business need? What's the design need? Will the team accept those? Like, you got to look at some other things before you one by one. And I think sometimes people just create personas because they feel that they have to. But if there's a real good place for personas and a real good need, personas make sense to me.
Yeah. I think it's I sometimes I am a little pragmatic too much, but I think in a kind of way, at the end of the day, maybe no matter how different is the people who you use your software or product, because the job is the same. Of
Yeah.
course, after the job, we can some
Yeah.
particularities or difference, but in the first time, the job is the most important. If I am a client of a bank, I need to withdraw money.
Right.
This is the job. No
Right.
matter if I am a man, woman,
Yeah, that's right.
or and because that the jobs to be done is more important to understand what they want to do.
That's
And
right.
after that, we can, of course, go deeper in the particularities or the difference between personas. It is the question.
I agree with that. I first started thinking of that about 20 years ago. I'll say I worked for a global company, and we had markets all over Europe. I actually lived in Germany for a very long time, and the German market and the French market and the UK market, and we had a US market as well too. And because our business was organized around countries, right, we had different personas in each country. But when you started to look across them all, it was just like you said, the difference in behavior had nothing to do with the country, because guess what? Somebody taking money out of a bank in France has the same job as somebody in Germany, right? And it's the same in the UK, right? So there are other variables that actually make a more meaningful distinction of the markets rather than language or country, right? That was just an example. And we started looking at that and we said, there's actually more commonalities if we had our market segmentation like this. If you flip it like this, you're like, wow, there's all these commonalities across all these markets. So yeah, I agree with that perspective.
Great. But it is making a dream come true.
Yeah,
Being able to ask you these things in person.
I would love to talk.
He sent me a message.
Yeah.
Come on, stop me.
Yeah.
Well, I like to talk as well too, so it's going to be a long conversation, I think.
No.
Yeah.
One thing I have to highlight here is that you really are an evangelist about jobs to be done.
Right. Right. Well, yeah, I agree. And that was part of it as well too. There's a lot that has been written about jobs to be done. I mean, it's over 30 years old. It's 35 years old ish. With precursors even before that. But it had it wasn't popular, or it wasn't widespread. It had this mystique, and it was a black box kind of thing about it. So one thing that I tried to do, first of all, was using my own lessons that I learned, because I made a lot of mistakes with jobs to be done. So one of the reasons I wrote the book is to help other people not make those mistakes that I made. But I also wanted to explain it in a way that had a broad appeal, right? So I think that observation about how I talk about jobs to be done was the motivation for me writing the book, is I wanted everybody to understand it, because I had so much success with it myself,
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's like I said, it's a great pleasure to capture this here with you, because okay, we read the book, but it's different when we have this kind of
Different.
chance, right?
Right.
So amazing.
But
Oh,
that goes back to the chief evangelist, and why do you need a chief evangelist, right? Because we got a great marketing team at Mural, and there are messages that go out, even videos and stuff like that. It's different hearing somebody talk about it who's human being, and you can tell not only do they know what they're talking about, but they're really passionate about it. That's a different message, right? So it's not one or the other. You need all of that as well too. But I think the role that a chief evangelist plays, and maybe I'm the chief evangelist of jobs to be done right now, is to have that authentic human connection with people.
Yes.
Amazing. Yes. Buriti, you have more questions?
No. I think
Bring it up.
Yeah.
I think this subject is very important because, as I said in the beginning, uh, if you are a designer, especially a UX designer or product designer, and you didn't start your working mapping the jobs to be done, the user experience, and these things,
Yes.
probably you are not a UX designer, to be honest.
Yeah.
And this subject is very important because if you start your work designing screens,
Yeah. Right.
you are wrong. You are wrong
Mm.
because this is the most important thing. And I would love to hear from
Yeah.
Jim about that because,
Yeah.
but I would like to ask you too, Jim, if do you see people making these mistakes, doing these mistakes to start your jobs, not just designers, but
Yeah.
product people and
Oh,
business
yeah.
people,
Yeah. Right.
without to thinking about the jobs
Yes.
before to designing or to deliver something?
Yeah, it's actually a very widespread symptom and issue that I see in my role. Like I said, I talk with lots of different companies, and the motivation and the urge to start coming up with a solution is really strong, right? So there's a business problem, and then the first thing that people want to do is what's the solution for that, right? And I think what both jobs to be done, this is a commonality as well too, jobs to be done in mapping experiences. What they do is say, let's first understand the problem. Let's understand the factors and the variables and the conditions before we start coming up with a solution. And I think that's important. It doesn't have to be big, heavy, upfront research. People, talk about, oh, we don't have time for this. And that was another point. Both of my books, by the way, was to say, no. You can have a more strategic understanding of the human beings that you're trying to serve through either jobs to be done at a more generic level or specifically through mapping experiences. And that strategic understanding is an understanding of the problem, right? Before you start going into solution. It doesn't have to be something that takes months and months and is going to slow your project down. But I also think, particularly if you work inside of an organization, that is, if you're not a consultant or working with many organizations, I think if you're going to be at a company for 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, you understand this is how you understand your market by doing jobs to be done, by doing mapping, experience mapping, right? Is that over time you start to develop an innate sensibility about what the market is going to need or they do, right? That you don't have to think about it or look up a fact. Somebody asks you a question, you say, "Yep, that's the thing." And for me, it's really about, yes, I think there is this idea. Yeah, we have to get a product out the door, and UX people have to do that as well too. But I think also the organization as a whole is also striving to be more customer centric, right? And I feel things like jobs to be done and mapping experience helps with an overall customer centricity as well too. And for me, that's a little bit more strategic. So the difference that you brought up UX versus just designing a product, which I'll just call UI right now, because you see this job title. I don't know if you have this in Brazil, but it's UX/UI. You see UX/UI, and I'm like, that's two different things. And it's two different things for exactly what you said, is that the UX person, they want to think about things more strategically. They want to understand the problem, right? They might do the UI design, and it's also possible to just go do the UI design, right? But if you really want a UX designer, they're going to say, what's the journey? What are the unmet needs? What are the contexts of my customer, right? Um, Here's the thing. I think knowing all of those things makes your job as a UI designer easier, right? Because there's no right or wrong answers. You guys know, you've been sitting there in front of a screen and you're putting buttons and text on there. It's like, what are you basing your decisions on? Like, if you don't know the context of that. So um, not only does jobs to be done and mapping experience not slow you down, I think it makes the rest of the process quicker as well too. But yeah, I do see a more strategic role in UX design for understanding the broader context, both business context and the human context, but also wanting to know what the problem is that you're trying to solve before you go to solve it.
Yes, definitely the journey or the task is the easiest way to see what or where is the problem,
Yep.
and it makes easier
That's right.
to do things.
That's right.
I don't know. Of course, we can use the mural or other tools, but
Sure.
you can
Yeah.
print things in the wall.
Yeah.
But it is very important for designers and the product team
I
to
think so.
see what the software
Yeah.
does and what the customer
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Because without that, it's impossible to take decisions.
I
Not
agree.
impossible to take decisions, but impossible to take the
It's
best
hard.
decisions.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
well,
hard.
it's harder, but it's also riskier, right? And the risk
Yeah.
is that you put something out there that then causes, usability problems. Now your support desk is getting calls, or it's something that doesn't get adopted, right? And you have this great marketing funnel, but then people get to the product and they don't use it, right? So there's a risk there, I believe. And doing this more strategic work or the understanding work, if we want to call it that, helps avoid risk later on, in my opinion.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Well,
For me, especially when we work in the B2B market, especially that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is a very complex. B2B situations are usually quite complex, and I think understanding that you can grab onto the grayness and the fuzziness of that too. But you also have to have a vision and clarity about what's the thing that's going to help me the most in all of that. And mapping experiences, they have their perspective. That's great, and jobs to be done as well too. But they're both two very powerful. I would put them in more of the strategic bucket than tactical, but it's important. And again, there's that other effect too, that it's not just about delivering my project. It's also about the team and how the team works together, and it's also about the organization and how human-centric is your organization. And here's a question that I like to ask companies when they say we don't need mapping experiences, or mapping experiences. It wasn't successful when we did it, and I think to myself, well, what's the alternative? You're not going to do user interviews. You're not going to map the experience. You're not going to create personas. You're not going to do all those things. You're not going to be customer centric if you don't do those things. It's really a cornerstone in really putting the customer first, I believe.
Yes.
totally. Yes, yes. Wow. This conversation was great, Jim. Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much, Jim.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I love the questions. I love your thinking. Yeah, you guys are on top of it. I can say that right now.
Oh, thank you. And please return to your channel and teach Brazilian audience designers more and more.
Oh,
Please.
sure. Sure. Yeah, I'll be happy to be back on the show with you or anybody else. Let them know. I'm always willing to do something like this.
Oh,
So
amazing.
happy to join you guys.
One final thing, where can even people follow you and
Yeah.
your work, social media?
Yeah.
Can you share?
Yeah, I spend most of my time on LinkedIn these days. I stopped using Twitter altogether, X, whatever they call it now. But on LinkedIn, I love connecting with people on LinkedIn, and I post there. I haven't posted recently, but I'm usually quite active out on LinkedIn. That's the best place to find me. I also have a website called the Jobs to Be Done Toolkit. It's jtbdtoolkit.com. And we have live events and things like that, and there's some free downloads and stuff. So a lot of my thinking since I wrote the book kind of comes out on the Jobs to Be Done toolkit, because Jobs to Be Done continues to evolve.
Oh, perfect. And we will put all things here in the description of
great.
the video so people can connect with you and visit your website. So that's it. Thank you for your time, patience, and this amazing class for us. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It was good.
I don't know how to ask you about that.
Oh,
What the
it
fuck
was
was
yeah,
that?
it was a really pleasant conversation. I love
Oh,
it. I enjoyed a lot.
yeah,
And
I see.
yeah, as you
I
could
saw,
see,
I saw.
I was totally free, and I love it. I love to take these discussions, to have this discussion, this opportunity to talk about this amazing tool. And I
Yeah.
think I think we brought a lot of good thoughts for our audience.
Yeah, provocative,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Things about jobs to be done, mapping experience, evangelist, chief of evangelist.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. So I liked your conversation. I think it was a great experience. And
Yes, yes.
as I said, a dream come true, right, Bridge?
And Jim is a very, very nice guy. Very nice
Yes,
guy.
yes, I agree with you. He's a
Yeah,
kindness and a good teacher, right?
yeah. And of
Yeah.
course, I would love to have some comments or feedbacks by our audience, because I think this subject is very important, and
Yes,
we
yes.
cannot, yeah, we cannot uh, uh, we cannot uh, have no comments or discussions in our video today, because it is the most important tool for you, designer.
Oh, yeah. So there is no chance
No, no.
to not send us
Yeah.
to,
Probably you have some doubts, probably, and questions. And
yeah.
please,
We can
please
help you with these
write down
questions. So
this.
yes, yes. So comment to about this conversation, send your
Yeah,
thoughts. Yes, totally agree with you.
yeah.
And you can
And
connect with Jim.
yes, yes. And please help us share this content. Share this
Share.
content.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Good idea. So
Yeah.
subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment, and